I am Svetlana, and I am here to teach you about evolutionary biology and its relationship with religion. Which religions does evolution concur with, and which does it disagree with? Let us find out.
Hello, my name is Louise, and welcome to my humble home. I'm going to talk about religion and evolutionary biology, as my good friend Svetlana has already told you about. Anyway, the fields of religion and science have often crossed hairs throughout history. There are many fights and many church debates that have gone on about the teachings of evolution. Even history has indications of this. In the United States, look at the Scopes monkey trial. People that did not want evolution taught to their children because they thought it would interfere with their religious beliefs put up a pretty good fight for not having that taught in their schools. On the other hand, there are many other religions that don't really have that big of a problem with evolution. These include, but are not limited to, Catholics, Jews, some Muslims, you have to look at some Protestant groups, and so on and so forth. Even most Hindus and Buddhists probably being the most stronger advocate of them all, you have to see how Protestant groups, particularly fundamental and some evangelical sects, they disagree with evolution because it conflicts with biblical teachings. For instance, that God created the world in 6 days, where evolutionary teaching teaches that the world evolved over time and that creations evolved over time. And I'm going to examine both sides of the argument. But overall, and what I've learned from doing this project, is that when you look at it, evolution is not incompatible with many religions. It's actually pretty compatible with, I'd say, maybe 70-75% of them. However, it would be a misconception if you considered those a small group of conservative Muslims, conservative Jews, and those Protestant sects who disagree with the teachings of evolution, and therefore it isn't compatible. So it could go either way, but for objectivity's sake, it is a misconception because evolution is compatible with many religions. Many religions still choose to reject it. While some do accept evolution and may even change their own beliefs for it, not all religions do this. So, if you look at evangelical Christianity, for instance, they view that God created the world in 6 24-hour days, as opposed to some Catholics who believe that that might not be true literally. Catholics believe in fundamental truths representing salvation, not necessarily the creation of the world, stories like Jonah and the whale, and other things of that nature. However, you can argue with that logic. If that's so illogical to believe and not concurrent with science, what makes Jesus rising from the dead any more believable? Now, some of the main issues that evangelical Christians and more conservative sects of Muslims and Jews might have with evolution conflicts with their sacred writings. All, in accordance with conservative beliefs, indicates that God is the supreme creator of all. Evolution doesn't necessarily prove this, and that's why some people have a problem with it. So, there is a conflict between some religious sects and evolution, but not necessarily all. Now, the theory of evolution says that humans evolved from earlier forms. For instance, our ancestor, the Tictal. People might have an issue with that, as they believe that God created humans in their own original form and have changed very little to this day. Evolutionary evidence applies something of a rather different nature. Now, many religions do reject this philosophy. So in these religious beliefs and these religious systems, evolution isn't completely a fallacy. So there is a misconception, yes, that religion is incompatible, because with some religions it is. But again, in some religion it isn't. One must take it a step further and first prove that evolution does exist and that it has occurred. Now, in proving this, there is a lot of scientific concrete evidence that can back this up. For instance, anatomic homology is one of them, so are fossils, developmental patterns, and so on and so forth. For an example of this, let's look at gills, not just in fish, but when one looks at the developing human fetus, you have to see that during development, gills appear and then disappear during growth. Is that a coincidence? No. It's due to evolution. Furthermore, evolution has been proven in a laboratory. If you take 2 strains of fruit flies, which are often easy to manipulate because they interbreed rather quickly, etc., it's an easy experiment to repeat because these 2 species of fruit fly They lost the ability to interbreed and produce fertile offspring in the lab. You make your own call with that. Now, take it a step further and compare humans to other species. Humans themselves share 96% of identical genes with apes. Could that point to a common ancestral relationship? Possibly. You have to make your own call with that. Also, in investigating this, we also have to look at the other side of the argument. In any fair and balanced debate, and excuse me for sounding like Bill O'Reilly, you have to see both sides, where both angles come from. We've looked at where the people who believe in the theory of evolution, and it is much more than a theory, has more credence than that based on a significant amount of evidence. However, there are some good points raised by the opposition. And again, some might think these are fickle points and not really well thought out, but some of them might actually cause you to think a little bit. So, alright, where did the first particle or the first sign of life come from? That is yet to be determined. And how can mutations or mistakes make so many errors, and then from those errors spring our knowledge and spring what we know today? Again, how does the microbe go from being the microbe to the microbiologist? It's a complex process. Now, how did the biochemical pathways involving many enzymes working together in sequence originate? It makes you think about that. And according to evangelical Christians, they believe that God guided this process, and that God is the supreme creator of all, and that creation did occur in 6 days. As silly as that may sound to some of you, it makes sense to them, and that's what they believe. Now, nobody knows how a mixture of all these lifeless chemicals spontaneously combined into life. Even people, Harvard biochemist, I believe, by the name of Andrew Knoll, if I'm not mistaken, admitted that thousands, millions of transitional fossils are missing. Darwin even admitted this himself, and to draw 100% cement conclusions, you need those fossils. You need, you'll excuse my pun, rock-solid evidence to back you up. Without that, it's pretty hard to convince someone. I mean, if you look at certain species, like the horseshoe crab, if you look back at fossils from hundreds of thousands of years ago, the horseshoe crab has changed very little. Makes you think a lot about that, but a lot of people don't. So it's important to consider that in evaluating religion and evolution. It makes you understand someone else's beliefs. While you might believe in evolution, somebody else next to you might not. And you're more than entitled to your own opinion, but so is that other person. And they have some good points too, so don't totally act like that. Okay, well, some important questions have been raised, and both sides of the argument have been investigated. Not just regarding religion being compatible, but the existence of evolution as well, which needs to be evaluated before even determining if religion is incompatible or compatible with religion. Can mere chemicals determine human values and human morals? Possibly. Scientists might find out new information that we don't quite know yet. There's so many capable scientists that we might find new information that totally disproves religion. Some people even argue that evolution already does that. In conclusion, I'd just like to say that religion and evolution have constantly been in combat with each other since probably Darwin's discovery. Now, but back to what my misconception was, religion is incompatible with evolution, or vice versa, evolution is incompatible with religion, etc. This is kind of tough to call, but for the most part, again, I'm going to say that evolution is compatible with most religions. However, it isn't compatible with all. I learned a lot from doing this project, and I hope you did too. It's interesting to investigate, and it's not necessarily heretical if you're investigating your faith as compared to a scientific discovery. I think even God indulges in a little healthy curiosity.